Welcome to the Business Infrastructure Podcast AI Conference.
Over the next 12 episodes, you'll hear a combination of fireside chats, keynote speeches, and product demonstrations, all centered around AI.
Hi there, I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre, host of the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we share operational tips, strategies, and tactics to help improve the way your company operates. We have another great episode lined up for you featuring our AI Tech Conference. This particular episode is bound to be packed with some really useful information that you can use to dramatically improve or transform the way you might be doing something in your back office operations. Before we get started, do me a really quick favor, please. Press pause, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so that you'll know when other episodes come, and then press play and we'll get right into it. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Here joining me today is Edie Woelfle. Edie is someone that I've met recently and instantly admired. We're both here in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is the founder and CEO of Keyboarder. She also works as a fractional chief technology officer for other companies, and she's going to share with us two of the many AI tools that she uses, Fireflies. But there's also a bonus one that she's going to talk to us about. It's a tool that she actually used to come up with the name of her very own company. Edie, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
And, first to kick things off, I must say, I have your LinkedIn profile here. It is rare that I read someone's LinkedIn profile and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I know this person. So kudos on a well-written, well-constructed LinkedIn profile. I really felt as though I knew you after reading your entire profile.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Here's what I've learned just from reading from the conversations you and I have had prior to this interview, but also just from reading your LinkedIn profile. You have a very strong background in gaming.
I do.
And then at some point you eventually transitioned into more quote unquote traditional software development. And in that transition, it sounds as though you were really self-taught in other programming or newer programming languages, but also in project management. And I guess I would venture to say the business side of technology. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then ultimately it led you into starting your very own company. So can we start there? Can you tell us a little bit more about how your experiences in gaming, as well as just overall software development, eventually led you to starting your own company, Keyboarder?
Sure. So as you saw on my LinkedIn, I started out as a video game developer. That's what my bachelor's degree is in. So I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, got my bachelor's degree there in game design and development. And so I moved to Atlanta to actually start working in video games. So I had a couple of gigs down here through multiple different game studios working in gaming. And I'll say that set me up later as a software engineer, to where not only did I have to learn a lot of different languages and do all sorts of crazy stuff that they don't teach you in school, right? To be self-taught. I will say that my school did a really good job of helping us learn how to learn, especially when it came to the software programming side of things. So even though my degree was in game development, it was a very easy transition into more of the technical, or the professional software field. So once I made that transition, the self-learn part of it was fairly easy, but also user experience. So I was very keen on the user experience because I was I was originally programming fun, right? And fun is subjective, but it is an experience for the user. So that really helped propel me in my career rather quickly, because I was not just concerned about programming whatever was told to me. I was more concerned about how that fit in the overall architecture of the system and what the end user experience would be. So that really pushed me forward as I continued my career through, again, that more traditional software development to where I became the first founder, the first engineering founder of a software in transportation logistics. It was a startup. So in that, I had to eventually start managing contractors and other people and the whole project altogether. So the project management piece really started to come into play at that point. And I was later able to transition that into other professional service organizations where I was doing engineering and engineering management, but also client management.
And so ultimately you have the project management, the client management, professional services. At what point were you truly bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, Edie?
Well, I had, since I started my career, I had done contract work. So I'd done contract work as well as a full-time job for a long time. And actually I had given up my contract work to go get my master's degree. I figured I couldn't work full-time, get my master's degree, and do contract work. So I had given up my contract. That was a lot. My husband said you had to pick two. So I picked two. And so I was doing my professional work and then going to school at night for my master's degree in data analytics, so happens. And really, I just wasn't happy. I since I have such a strong dev background, a lot of the professional services agencies, because there is a shortage stateside for engineering talent, I got jerked around a lot in that I would be managing one project or rescuing a project from going under and doing a lot of the work that I truly enjoy doing, where the project management, again, the solutions architecture piece of the project and leading the engineering team, to then being a full-time engineer myself and kind of yanked back and forth to whatever was needed at the time. So I began to realize that the talents that I had developed from the very early stages of my career were not being utilized by the organizations that I worked for. No shade. Maybe a little shade.
Yeah, but the good thing is you haven't mentioned any names, right? Of any.
You're right. So. I mean, I hope nobody goes and looks at my LinkedIn profile, but so there was I was at a 4th of July party. I guess this would have been 2021. I was at a 4th of July party, and one of my best friend's husbands, it was one of my best friend's house, her party, and her husband was there. And my husband had been trying to get me to quit and start my own firm for a while. But he wanted me to take a major break in between. He's like, I want you to quit your job, take a break, finish your master's degree, and then go and start your own business. I was like, you're crazy. Like, I knew I could do it. I knew I wanted to do it. I just didn't know if it was the right time. And so one of my best friend's husband was sitting down with me, and he goes, Edie, I just don't feel like you're happy because you're not able to utilize the skills that you want to utilize on a daily basis. And he's like, and that concerns me. And my husband heard us talking, so my husband came to back him up and say, we've been concerned that you're just no longer happy in just being an engineer, and that you have talents and expertise outside of just that, and we want you to have your own, find your own place in this world, and if nobody else can make that place for you, then you need to make it for yourself. So that day, I committed to them a date in which I would quit my job.
Wow.
So I put it a couple months out, and I said, all right, this will give me enough time to put a few things in order, stash up a little bit more cash, and my husband wanted me to take 6 months off. So I was like, all right. So I started signing up for extra classes so I could work on my master's degree a little faster. And yeah, I quit on that date, and quit to nothing. I had no job. It wasn't like I was quitting, going somewhere else. I didn't have any clients lined up. The idea was that I was just going to work on my master's degree. I got really bored with that really fast. So I did take some extra classes, expedited the degree, but I think I quit my job in, it was September of 2021. And then by January, I was ready to start working again. So I founded Keyboarder and got to work. So that was my entrepreneurial journey.
And the rest is history, as they say.
The rest is history.
So you start Keyboarder. Now, what I find so interesting is that when you and I were talking before this interview, you mentioned that you actually leveraged an AI tool to come up with the name Keyboarder. Can you tell us a little bit more about that tool?
Sure. So I'm an engineer by trade. Wordsmithing is not my expertise. So I obviously knew I wanted to start a business well before that January. And I was trying to figure out what to name it. So I was like, well, I don't want to use my name in any way, shape, or form. I want this to be a brand bigger than me. So I was just doing some searching, and I just typed in like business name generator or something. I was like, just give me something to start with here. Like I have some sort of spark of creativity in this. And I came up with, or I found this product called Namelinks. So you go on there and you basically tell them what type of business that you want to start. You give a description of the business, any keywords, what industry it's in. And it gives you different parameters of how you like different things that you're willing to entertain. For example, do you want to use real English words? Do you want mispronunciation, or not mispronunciation, misspelling? So misspelled or alternatively spelled, I think is how they put it in there. Do you want a conjunction of names? And they give examples like FedEx, where it's like Federal and Express. And additionally, on top of that, it allows you to put in parameters of domains. So you can say, well, I really want a .com or a .co, or I'm okay, I want, an org. And so then it generates out all these different business names and lets you know if the domain is actually available or not, which is, as we all know, huge, because we can all have a great business name. But if all the primary domains are gone, then it's not going to work for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's where Keyboarder came from. I think I'd put in software engineering, keyboard, things of that nature. And even on top of that, what makes it even better is it generates out like a little sample logo for you. So I saw the name Keyboarder. It was not the logo that I currently had, but it did have something very similar. And I just instantly fell in love with it. And I was like, this is something. And then it takes you onto another site called Brandmark, where you can actually customize the logo and purchase the logo and keep track of everything for like $199 is like their top tier package or something. So I ended up paying for the top tier package, and they have you can generate it out several times, but also for the top tier package, you can get a designer that will come in and customize it a little bit, tweak it for you. So I had her the brackets on the Keyboarder logo. The first one only had the bracket in the K, and it was a different color than the rest of it. So I ended up like the legs on the K. So I ended up asking her to mirror that on the end to make it look more like an HTML script, and thus be even more software engineer, like a hidden gem for us engineers.
Well, and we'll make sure that in our show notes that we actually show what your logo looks like, in case people who are watching this or even listening to this are curious. So that was great. Thank you so much for sharing more about Namelix. And for those listening right now, it's NAMELIX.com, I believe, right? I actually went on there and kind of played around with it a little bit. It's really, really cool. And poof, here we are again, Edie, and we look different, right? We've changed clothes, hair color. I have my gray showing.
Everything is different, but that's okay.
Okay, so one of the things that I know you have personally introduced to me, and you have started something over here at Equilibria and the Business Infrastructure Podcast, and that is Fireflies. What's so interesting, Edie, I remember seeing things like Otter and some of those other digital note-taking tools. And I was just thinking, oh, okay, that's cute. It comes into your Zoom call or your Microsoft Teams call, Google Meet, and it's really just offering a transcription. So what's the difference, right? Because we have all kinds of other transcription tools that we're using. But then I remember you showing me all of the magical things that Fireflies can do. So can we start there? First, can you tell us exactly what Fireflies is and what led you to using it as your digital note-taking assistant, if you will?
Sure. So Fireflies is an AI. It comes into all of your meetings, right? Which is the best part about it for me is that I don't have to remind, his name is Fred. I don't have to remind Fred to come to my meetings. Fred is just always there. So Fred not only transcribes the entire meeting, but he also produces a summary of the meeting. And he gives us action items at the end of every meeting based on things that were brought up during our discussion. It also looks at the tone of who was talking, how long they were talking, and then the general tone of the conversation, which makes it really great. Being an entrepreneur myself, and I do most of the sales for my company Keyboarder, it does kind of let me review conversations that I've had with potential customers and understand, was I missing something in terms of, are they really interested in our services? Was my tone good, like, and up, meaning like I was happy to be there, and then they were happy to receive the information, discuss with me their project. It can be a little disappointing at times. I'm dealing with custom software, so normally people come to me when they've already had a problem and are frustrated. But I at least hope to greet them with some sort of happiness and kindness. So I started using Fred because I run a professional services business. So I was using a Microsoft transcript at the time. I used Microsoft Teams in my business, and I was paying for the Teams transcription. The problem with that was I would forget to start transcribing the meeting at the very beginning, because I would come in, I would be happy to see my client or potential customer and want to get into discussing everything with them immediately and forget that there was this chore I had to do. So I was looking for services that would auto record those meetings. Now, I wanted to record those meetings not just so I could go back and look at them on a sales side, but also because there are decisions that are made in every one of these meetings, especially for custom software, that sometimes people forget that they've made this decision. So when I present them with the end product of that decision, sometimes they are wondering, wait, when did this happen, right? And I can go back and actually say, actually, we made this at this specific time in this specific meeting. And if you've forgotten, here's a link to the recording of it. Not only is it transcribed, not only is it audio, but you can see your smiling face making that decision, which is, I guess, somewhat petty in a way, but also, it's a protection for myself and my business and my employees, making sure that there's no dispute on what our clients have asked us to do and what we have performed for them. So.
And what I love about it, and I know this because of having been on meetings with you where Fred is in the room, what I loved about it, what drew my attention right away to your approach, and I'm sure it's all in the way that you um, set up your settings, I guess, for Fireflies. I receive a message prior to a meeting with you, Edie, that says, "Hey, Alicia, FYI, Fred's going to be in the room. Fred's going to be recorded." So I go into a meeting with you, a virtual meeting with you, knowing it will be recorded. But then immediately after the meeting, I receive another email, even though I'm just a participant. I receive another email with a link to that meeting summary that you were just talking about. And as you pointed out, the amazing thing to me, as my team and I have now been experimenting with Fireflies, is the fact that it can listen to your conversation and literally pick out what the action items are. So it's not like you have to specifically say, "Hey, Fred, this is an action item for Edie," or "Hey, Fred, this is an action item for Alicia." It can instinctively listen, which is also kind of scary in
Very
a way,
scary.
that it can
Mhm.
listen and well enough to be able to understand what's just regular conversation versus what is an actual item that someone has to act on. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yes, and that is partially in my settings. The initial email that you get to tell you that Fred is going to be there, is mostly a compliance setting in terms of there are some states, every like third party recording is different in every state. So it just sends out that email to make sure that regardless of your jurisdiction, you are aware that you are going to be recorded. I have actually gotten some pushback on that on several occasions. I tell people like, look, if you're really that uncomfortable, but I also have a backup in which we take personal notes in an application called Fellow that allows us to write down the action items and any talking points and any additional notes that came out of that meeting that we will also send to our clients afterward. So a lot of times, not only are they getting Fred's wonderful recap, but they're also getting our individualized recap in terms of what we agreed the action items would be. Because sometimes Fred does go a little overboard with action items. I have come out of a 15-minute meeting with like 70 action items. So sometimes he goes a little overboard. He's a little crazy, but it is a good, helpful reminder of what did we discuss in that meeting.
That's awesome. Now, how has it increased your efficiency and or productivity when it comes to recording meeting notes? Because as you mentioned, I can only imagine when it comes to building custom software, there's so many things being said, there's so many moving parts. It's very easy. I can imagine putting myself into the shoes of a customer, forgetting what you said or forgetting what you've agreed to. How has it really streamlined that entire process for you, Edie?
Well, I could show you how it has streamlined all of our
Absolutely, please. Let's
process.
get right into it. Let's get that demo
Let's get
going.
into it.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to share Fireflies itself really quick for your listeners. Just quickly, these are all of my meetings that Fred has been in. There's hundreds. I actually did a mass export not too long ago. There are more meetings in here than I would love to admit. So I'm going to pull up one that was not with a client, just with a networking event between two friends and myself. So you can see that, Ted mentioned in the very beginning of our meeting that my dog was barking. So you can see here, like, the sentiment filters, 65% of it was neutral, 28% of our discussion was positive, and there was only 6% that was negative. Now, I will say I did kick Fred out of this meeting about 6 minutes into it, so it's not the full meeting. And also, you can see where Fred kind of went a little overkill. Like there were 14 action items in a 6-minute meeting. So that's interesting. Thanks, Fred. But mostly this discussion is about my dogs. Now, the two people on this call, Ted and Barry, shout out to them. They were they did receive an email afterwards about this about this call afterwards of our little snapshot of our 6-minute conversation here. They received an overview, and they were actually able to come in and actually listen to the audio. Now they don't get video right off the bat. I do have to send them explicit instructions to be able to view the video. But that being said, what we've done at Keyboarder is we've actually created a client portal for all of our clients. So they are not only able to come in and look at our invoices that we've sent out, our the SOWs and stuff that we've signed off with them or that are in progress. They can also come in here and review the JIRA tickets that we've written and done and where the status is on all of those. So you'll see that there are a ton of JIRA projects. Of course, this is my admin view. So there's JIRA projects in here from all different types of clients, and JIRA tickets from all different types of clients and where they are in the pipeline. But this is the fun part. I actually brought in Firefly. So at the end of every meeting, it actually uploads the transcript from Fireflies in here. So my clients are able to come into their client portal. They know the date of the meeting, when all this was created, if I've modified anything. They can see the Firefly summary directly in our portal. And then they have access to the audio URL and the transcript URL, as well as the transcript PDF. And on top of that, as I mentioned before, we have our own personal notes. Those personal notes would show down here if there were any. So we've combined our own personal human-generated notes as well as the transcript from Fred together for our clients to see every interaction that we've had with them in the past, well, forever, since the business started.
This is awesome because it provides a level of transparency that I would imagine your customers appreciate. Just being able to log into the portal, always see where not only the status of their project, but the status of any open tickets, Now I notice here at the very bottom of the screen, Edie, does that say Stacker?
Yes, that the powered by Stacker.
Okay, is that the tool that you've built? And does Fireflies come with an automatic integration with this tool, Stacker?
So it does not. So Stacker is it's a really good like client portal builder, kind of like a low code situation. I threw this together over Christmas break. Threw this together over Christmas break. It's also built on top of Airtable. So what I did with Fireflies, so Fireflies only really has an API integration with Zapier. So what I did was I'm actually piping from the Zapier notification that a Fireflies meeting has taken place. If Firefly sees this, please let me do custom webhooks because I want to do more than just work through Zapier. And then, so at the end of every meeting, it goes to Zapier, and then from Zapier, I put it into Airtable, and then Airtable pipes it into Stacker.
Okay, and how does Stacker know exactly where to send each meeting's summary and transcript? Or do you then have to do some other finessing so that it can go exactly where it's supposed to go automatically?
Okay, so actually I did all of that myself. So what happens in my database on Airtable, essentially, I have the emails of all of my clients, obviously, so they can log in. So what happens is Fred sends his little meeting notes over to Zapier. Zapier puts it into a single table in Airtable. And then I wrote some custom code to look at the participants in the meeting to then automatically assign the meeting based on the participants of the meeting. So obviously not all of my clients can see all of the different meetings between each clients because it's important to keep that confidentiality. Now I can go in and see all of them because I was likely in all of those meetings, like in here. But yeah, so I wrote some custom code that checks the emails in the participants of Fred, and then goes and separates it out into the permission settings that are in Stacker of who can actually see which meeting.
And what has been the response of your customers? I'm curious.
This is very new for them. It's
Mhm.
very new in custom software dev. I do not know of another shop that is offering as much transparency as we are. So the reviews have been more so of shock that how much I've provided back to them, because there were clients who have been with me for almost 2 years that, you know, I uploaded meeting notes from Fred from, you know, almost 2 years ago, and they're like, wow, I can't believe that you still have this, along with my own personal meeting notes from that long. So I did spend quite a bit of time going through my, like, all of my past clients also have access to this. So I did spend quite a bit of time back uploading data into the system. So yeah, I would say it's more so of shock. It's something that's fairly new. I wish it wasn't so new, right? Or so radical in the custom software space, but we at Keyboarder believe in transparency. And so we're willing to put our money where our mouth is and give our clients ultimate transparency to every step of the process all the time.
This is great, Edie, and I can't thank you enough for sharing this. This is fantastic, and hopefully someone who's watching this will also be equally impressed. And if you have any custom software projects that you have in your queue, definitely contact Edie with keyboarder.com. We'll make sure that we have, again, links in the description box wherever you are watching or listening to this particular interview.
I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and we have even more great videos coming up for you. They'll include actual demonstrations of different AI tools that you can start using to improve the way your business operates. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of this information that's coming up. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.